The glass tower cut through Chicago's skyline like a blade. Grace Thompson pushed her cleaning cart across the 47th floor, her movements practiced and silent. At 28, she had perfected the art of invisibility. 3 jobs. 6 hours of sleep. 1 daughter waiting at home. She knocked on the executive office door. Silence, she entered. The man by the window turned. Grace's breath caught. Brandon Cole. Even she knew that name. 35. Ruthless. Untouchable. His dark eyes swept over her uniform with cold dismissal. Then his gaze sharpened. "What is your name?" His voice was ice. "Grace Thompson, sir." The temperature in the room dropped. Brandon's hands became fists. Thompson. The word fell like a stone. Grace's world tilted. That name. The name that haunted her childhood. The name that meant abandonment and shame. He was my father. He died 8 years ago. Brandon's face transformed into something savage. Robert Thompson. The man who embezzled millions from my family. Who destroyed my father's company. Who killed my father with stress and my mother with grief. Grace stumbled backward. I was 14 when he left. My mother worked herself to death because of him. I don't care. Brandon moved toward her like a predator. Get out. You have 5 seconds before I call security. I need this job, please. I have a daughter. Your father's sins are not an excuse. His words cut deep. But firing you would be too easy. Grace's pulse hammered. What do you mean? Brandon's smile was cruel. You'll work for me. As my personal assistant, 3 times your current salary. You'll be available whenever I need you, day or night. You'll do exactly as I say. Why would you offer me that? Because I want you close. Where I can remind you every single day what your family owes mine. Where I can watch you suffer for your father's crimes. Okay. The air between them crackled with hatred. Grace thought of Lily, her 6-year-old daughter who deserved better than this endless struggle. 3 times her salary meant food, stability, a future. Accept. Brandon's eyes gleamed with dark satisfaction. Good. Tomorrow. 8 a.m. Don't be late. As Grace left, she didn't see the way Brandon's hands trembled. Didn't see him stare at the space where she'd stood. His chest tight with something he refused to name. Revenge would taste sweet. It had to Grace. Arrived 15 minutes early the next morning wearing her only professional outfit. Brandon barely looked up. Sit there. He pointed to a corner desk facing the wall. First task. Cancel all my afternoon meetings. Tell them something came up. Of course, Mr. Cole. She worked in silence while he made calls, signed contracts, and ignored her completely. Hours passed. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten breakfast. At noon, Brandon stood. I'm going to lunch. You'll stay here. Answer the phone. Take messages. Should I order something for myself, or is there a break? No breaks. You eat when I say you can eat? He left. Grace stared at her desk, jaw clenched. This was the revenge he wanted. Small cruelties? Public humiliation. She could endure it. She had endured worse. At 3 p.m., Brandon returned with another man. Tall, handsome, with kind eyes. Marcus Chen, the company's VP of Operations. Brandon, you didn't tell me you hired a new assistant. Marcus smiled at Grace warmly. I'm Marcus. Welcome to Cole Industries. He extended his hand. Grace shook it, startled by the genuine kindness.
Thank you.
I'm Grace. Have you eaten? Brandon has a terrible habit of forgetting his assistants are human. Brandon's jaw tightened. There's a cafe on the 3rd floor. Go grab something, my treat. Tell them to put it on my account. That won't be necessary, Brandon said sharply. It absolutely is. Marcus held Brandon's stare. Something passed between them, A challenged Grace stood carefully. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. That's very kind." As she left, she felt Brandon's eyes burning into her back. When she returned 20 minutes later, Brandon was alone. His expression was thunderous. "Let me make something clear." His voice was soft, dangerous. "You work for me, not Marcus, not anyone else. You don't accept favors. You don't make friends. You exist to serve me and remember what you owe. Understood?" Grace met his glare. "Understood, Mr. Cole." But something had shifted. For the first time since entering his office, Grace had felt human. And Brandon had noticed. That night, as she tucked Lily into bed, her daughter asked, "Is your new job better, Mommy?" Grace kissed her forehead. Grace thought of Brandon's hatred, of Marcus's kindness, of the way Brandon's eyes had followed her all day with something that looked almost like obsession. "I don't know yet." 3 weeks passed. Brandon's cruelty became routine. He made her work late, then earlier. He criticized every task, every word, every movement. He found reasons to keep her close, always watching, always testing, but Grace never broke, never complained, never gave him the satisfaction of tears. It infuriated him. Marcus, meanwhile, made a habit of stopping by, bringing coffee, asking about her day, treating her like a person instead of a target. One evening, as Grace prepared to leave, Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Want to join?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Does she? Grace, do you have plans?" Grace looked between them. Brandon's expression was carved from stone. Marcus's was open, curious. "I need to get home to my daughter," she said carefully. "Another time, then." Marcus smiled. "Bring her along if you'd like. My sister has kids. They could play." After Marcus left, Brandon stood abruptly. "Stay away from him, excuse me? You heard me? Marcus Chen is off limits. This is your job. Nothing more." Grace stood, gathering her things. "You don't control my personal life, Mr. Cole. As long as you work for me, I control everything." He moved closer, invading her space. "You're here to pay a debt, not to flirt with my executives." I wasn't flirting. He was being kind. "Something you wouldn't understand." The words hung between them, sharp and true. Brandon's eyes darkened. "Get out." Grace left, but she felt his stare following her all the way to the elevator the next morning. Everything changed. Grace arrived to find a woman in Brandon's office. Beautiful, polished, wearing diamonds that could fund Grace's life for years. She laughed at something Brandon said, touching his arm with easy intimacy. "Grace, this is Victoria Sterling," Brandon said coolly. "My fiancée." The word hit like a slap. Grace didn't know why it mattered. Didn't understand the sharp twist in her chest. "Congratulations," she managed. Victoria's smile was razor sharp. "So you're the new assistant?" "Brandon told me all about you." "About your father?" The room went still. "Victoria," Brandon warned. "What?" "It's fascinating. Hiring the daughter of the man who destroyed your family? Very magnanimous of you, darling." Her eyes glittered with malice. "Or is it revenge?" Grace lifted her chin. "If you'll excuse me, I have work to do." She walked out, refusing to let them see her hands shake. But that night, alone in her apartment after Lily fell asleep, Grace allowed herself one moment of weakness. She cried, not for Brandon's cruelty, not for Victoria's poison, but for the twisted, impossible feeling growing in her chest every time Brandon looked at her with those haunted, hateful eyes. She was falling for the man who wanted to destroy her, and she had no idea how to stop. Victoria became a constant presence. She arrived unannounced, draping herself across Brandon's desk, making pointed comments about Grace's clothes, her background. Her existence. Brandon never defended Grace, but he never participated either. He watched with those dark, unreadable eyes while Victoria sharpened her knives on Grace's dignity. One afternoon, Marcus stopped by with coffee. 2 cups. Thought you could use this. He handed one to Grace, his smile genuine. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Marcus, please. We're colleagues, not strangers. Brandon's chair scraped against the floor. Grace, I need those reports now.
Ow.
I just gave them to you an hour ago, she said quietly. Then redo them. The formatting is wrong. Brandon, man, ease up. She's been working non-stop. This doesn't concern you? When you're treating people poorly, it concerns everyone. Marcus held his ground. Grace, take a break. 15 minutes. Brandon stood, his voice lethal. She works for me. Not you. Then be a better employer. The air crackled with tension. Grace felt trapped between them, a pawn in a game she didn't understand. It's fine, she said quickly. I'll redo the reports. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Offer stands. If you ever need anything, my door is open. After he left, Brandon's hands were fists on his desk. What did I tell you about him? He brought me coffee. Brandon moved around the desk, fast, until he was close enough that Grace could smell his cologne. Expensive, intoxicating. You're playing a dangerous game. I'm not playing anything. You're the one who can't decide if you want to destroy me or keep me close. The words escaped before she could stop them. Brandon's eyes widened, just slightly. For a heartbeat, something raw flashed across his face. Then it was gone. Get back to work. That night, Grace's neighbor called. Lily's running a fever. 102. I think you should come home. Grace grabbed her things, panic rising. Mr. Cole, I need to leave. My daughter is sick. Brandon looked up from his computer. We're not done here. She has a fever. She needs me. You have responsibilities here. Grace stared at him, disbelief turning to fury. She's 6 years old, and she's sick. I'm leaving. She walked out. Brandon didn't follow. At home, Grace held Lily close, cooling her forehead with a damp cloth. The fever broke around midnight, but Grace stayed awake, watching her daughter sleep. She couldn't do this anymore. Couldn't work for a man whose cruelty had no limits. In the morning, she would find another job, walk away, survive differently. But when she arrived at the office the next day, ready to resign, she found a check on her desk. $5,000. A note in Brandon's sharp handwriting for medical expenses. No one mentioned you taking yesterday off. Grace stared at the check, her throat tight. She found Brandon in the conference room, alone. I can't accept this. He didn't look up from his laptop. You can. You will. Why? This doesn't fit your revenge plan. Brandon's jaw clenched. Your daughter is innocent. This isn't about her, but it's about me? About making me suffer for sins I didn't commit? Yes. He finally met her eyes, and Grace saw something crack in his armor. It was supposed to be. But you make it difficult. Make what difficult? Hating you? The admission seemed to cost him. You show up early. You work harder than anyone I've ever known. You take every insult, every cruelty, and you never break. You never complain. You just survive. And I don't know what to do with that. Grace's heart hammered. You could try seeing me as a person instead of a symbol. I can't. Because if I do, then everything I've believed for 15 years becomes a lie. My father died hating your father. I built this company on that anger. If I let it go, what's left? Maybe something better. Brandon stood abruptly. Take the check. Use it for Lily, but don't mistake it for kindness. I'm not capable of that. Not with you. He left the conference room, leaving Grace alone with the check and the knowledge that beneath his cruelty lived something far more complicated than hate. The turning point came. 2 weeks later, Victoria planned an engagement party, a spectacle of wealth and power at the city's most exclusive venue. She made sure Grace knew about it. You'll be working the event, Victoria said sweetly, making sure everything runs smoothly. Brandon needs his assistant there. The party was everything Grace expected. Beautiful people in beautiful clothes, drinking expensive champagne and discussing deals worth millions. Grace worked in the shadows, invisible again, ensuring the evening flowed perfectly. She saw Brandon across the room, Victoria on his arm. They looked perfect together. Matched in wealth, status, power, Marcus found her by the bar. Shouldn't have to work events like this. It's part of the job. The job Brandon created to torture you. Marcus's voice was gentle but knowing. Yeah, I figured it out. Your last name? His history. I'm not blind, Grace. She met his eyes. Then why are you being kind to me? Because I know Brandon. I've known him since college, and I've never seen him like this. Whatever he thinks he's doing, it's eating him alive. That's not my problem, isn't it? Marcus smiled sadly. You're the only person who's ever stood up to him, who's ever made him question himself. That terrifies him. Before Grace could respond, a commotion erupted across the room. A man in a security uniform was arguing with one of Victoria's friends. Grace recognized the situation instantly. The man was being accused of stealing a bracelet. Grace moved without thinking. Excuse me? I saw what happened. That bracelet fell off her wrist 20 minutes ago. I picked it up and put it on the bar. Anyone could have taken it. The security guard looked relieved. Thank you, miss. But the accused man, older, dignified, looked at Grace with tears in his eyes. You didn't have to do that. But thank you. Everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt, Grace said softly. Across the room, Brandon watched the entire exchange. He saw Grace defend a stranger. Saw her risk Victoria's wrath for someone who couldn't defend themselves. He saw her in a way he'd been refusing to see for months, and something inside him shattered. Later, after the party ended, Brandon found Grace alone in his office. She was gathering her things. Exhausted, why did you do it? His voice was quiet. Grace didn't pretend not to understand. Because false accusations destroy lives? I know that better than anyone. That man was a stranger. So was I once. To you? And you accused me of crimes I didn't commit? Brandon moved closer. Grace. She looked up, and he saw the weight she carried, the strength it took to survive him. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice rough. Something I've never told anyone. You don't owe me explanations. I do. Because I've been punishing you for 15 years of anger that isn't yours to carry. Brandon sat on the edge of his desk, suddenly looking years older. My father didn't die from stress. He died from guilt. Grace went still. 3 months before your father disappeared, my father discovered the embezzlement. He knew, and he said nothing because Robert was his best friend. He thought he could fix it quietly. But Robert ran, and the scandal broke, and my father couldn't live with the choice he made. With the betrayal of his own judgment? Brandon's voice cracked. He put the gun to his head. Left a note saying he was sorry. Sorry for trusting the wrong person. Sorry for failing the company. Sorry for failing me. Grace's hand flew to her mouth. Brandon, I'm so sorry. I spent 15 years hating your father for what he did. But I never let myself hate mine for giving up. For leaving me alone with all that rage and nowhere to put it? He looked at her, and his eyes were raw. Then you walked into my office, and I finally had a target. Someone to punish. Someone to make feel as powerless as I felt the day I found my father's body. Tears streamed down Grace's face. You were just trying to survive your pain. So were you. And I made it worse. I became the thing I hated most. Someone who punished the innocent for someone else's crimes. Grace crossed the space between them, standing close enough to touch. We're both victims of our father's choices. Maybe it's time we stopped letting dead men control our lives. Brandon's hand lifted, hesitated, then touched her face gently. I don't know how to stop being angry. With yourself. With me, honestly. His thumb brushed her cheek. I think about you constantly. I watch you and see strength I've never had. Courage I can't match. And it terrifies me because hating you was easier than admitting I might feel something else entirely. The air between them changed, charged, dangerous. You're engaged. To a woman I don't love, to a life I don't want. His voice dropped to a whisper. I hired you for revenge. But somewhere along the way, you became the only real thing in my world. Grace's breath caught. This can't happen. I know. It's too complicated. I know. We'd destroy each other, probably. Brandon leaned closer, his forehead almost touching hers. Tell me to stop. Tell me this is insane, and I'll walk away. Grace closed her eyes. Should walk away from this man who'd hurt her, who represented everything painful about her past. But when she opened her eyes, she saw something she recognized. A broken person trying to heal, just like her. Can't, she whispered. I can't tell you to stop. The kiss happened like lightning. Sudden, fierce, inevitable. And in that moment, everything changed. The kiss ended, but neither of them moved. Brandon's hands framed Grace's face like she was something precious, something he feared would disappear. This is a mistake, Grace breathed. The best one I've ever made. Brandon's voice was rough with emotion. Grace, I need to tell you something else. Something I should have told you from the beginning. Before he could continue, footsteps echoed in the hallway. They sprang apart as Victoria appeared in the doorway, her eyes sharp. Working late again? Her smile was venomous. How dedicated. Grace gathered her things with shaking hands. I was just leaving. Good night, Mr. Cole, Miss Sterling. She fled before her face betrayed everything the next morning. Brandon called her into his office. His expression was carefully neutral, but Grace saw the tension in his shoulders. Closed the door. She did. Waited. Last night can't happen again, he said. Not meeting her eyes, Grace's stomach dropped. I know. But I need you to understand something. Victoria and I are ending the engagement. I'm calling it off today, Hope flared. Dangerous and bright. Because of me? Because of me. Because I've been living a lie for so long, I forgot what truth feels like. Brandon finally looked at her. But Grace, there's something you need to know about your father. About what really happened. The office phone rang. Brandon cursed, looked at the caller ID and went pale. I have to take this. But Grace, stay, please. We need to talk. He picked up the phone, and Grace watched his face transform. Shock, horror, disbelief. When his voice was barely audible. How long do they have? He hung up, staring at nothing. Brandon, what happened? My mother. She's in the hospital. Heart attack. They don't think she'll make it through the night. His hands trembled. I need to go to Boston. Now, of course, go. I'll handle everything here. Brandon grabbed his coat, then turned back. Come with me. What? I need you there. Please, Grace. I can't do this alone. Grace thought of Lily, of her responsibilities. But she saw the raw fear in Brandon's eyes and recognized it. The terror of losing a parent. I'll arrange care for Lily. I'll meet you at the airport in 2 hours. The flight to Boston was silent. Brandon stared out the window, his jaw clenched tight. Grace wanted to reach for his hand, to offer comfort, but the space between them felt insurmountable. At the hospital, Brandon's mother was unconscious, hooked to machines that beeped rhythmically. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the powerful matriarch Brandon had described. She never recovered after Dad died, Brandon said quietly. Just kept going through the motions of living without ever really being alive. A nurse entered, checked vitals, left. The hours stretched around midnight. Brandon finally spoke. I need to tell you what I learned about your father. What I've known for 3 months now. Grace's blood went cold. What do you mean? Brandon pulled out his phone, showed her a file. I hired investigators to dig deeper into the embezzlement. I wanted proof. Evidence I could use to make you pay, and they found something else. Emails. Communication between your father and my father. Grace, your father didn't act alone. My father was involved. They planned it together. The room tilted. What are you saying? Your father took the fall, but my father orchestrated everything. He needed money to cover bad investments, and Robert helped him create the fraud. They were going to split the money and disappear. Start over. Brandon's voice was hollow. But my father got cold feet. He blamed everything on Robert, destroyed his reputation, and kept all the money. Your father fled because he had no choice. Because my father made him the villain. Grace couldn't breathe. You're lying. I wish I was.
Ow.
Brandon's eyes were tortured. My father let yours be destroyed to save himself, then couldn't live with the guilt and killed himself. And I've spent 15 years worshiping a man who was a coward and a thief while punishing you for his crimes. Why didn't you tell me? Grace's voice shook with rage. Why did you let me believe my father was the only guilty one? Because I'm a coward too. Because admitting my father was worse than yours meant admitting everything I built was based on a lie. Grace stood, backing away. You've known for 3 months. 3 months you let me work for you. Let me believe I owed you something. Let me think my father destroyed your family when it was the other way around. Grace, please, you kissed me. You made me care about you, all while knowing the truth. I was going to tell you. Last night, before Victoria interrupted, I was about to explain everything, but you didn't. You kept the secret, just like your father kept secrets. You're just like him. The words landed like a blow. Brandon flinched, but didn't argue. You're right. And I hate myself for it. Nurses rushed in. A doctor appeared. I'm sorry, the doctor said minutes later. We did everything we could. But because she understood grief, understood the hollow ache of losing a parent, even a complicated one, Brandon moved through the service like a ghost, accepted condolences with mechanical politeness, spoke empty words about his mother's life. At the reception, Victoria appeared, beautiful and cold. I heard you ended our engagement, she said loudly enough for others to hear. Such a shame. I suppose some men prefer common help to their equals. Grace felt everyone's eyes on her, understood immediately what Victoria had done, connected Grace to the funeral, to Brandon, in a way that suggested scandal. That's enough, Brandon said, his voice cutting. Does everyone know who she is? That her father stole millions from your family? That you hired her out of some twisted revenge fantasy? Victoria's smile was cruel. Or has she seduced you into forgetting what matters? The room went silent. Grace wanted to run, to hide, to disappear, but she'd spent too long being invisible. You're right, Grace said clearly. He destroyed lives, including mine and my mother's. And yes, Brandon hired me for revenge. But the truth Victoria doesn't want you to know is that his father was equally guilty. They planned the fraud together, and Brandon's father let mine take all the blame. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Brandon's face went white. I have proof, Grace continued, pulling out her phone. Brandon gave me access to the investigation files. I've read every email, every document. Your precious Cole family, built on lies and theft, just like mine. Grace, stop, Brandon said quietly. But Grace was done being silent. You all treated me like I was contaminated by my father's crimes, like I owed Brandon something for existing. But his father was worse. At least mine had the decency to feel guilty. She looked at Brandon, and her heart broke all over again. We're both children of liars and thieves. The only difference is, I accepted it. You built an empire trying to deny it. Grace walked out of the reception, out of the funeral home. Out of Brandon Cole's life, or so she thought. She returned to Chicago. Lone called her supervisor the next morning and quit. Found a new cleaning job. Further from the glass towers and the memories. 2 weeks passed in painful silence. Then Marcus appeared at her door. He's been looking for you. Called every day, asking if I'd seen you. I don't want to see him. I know. But Grace, there's something you should know. Brandon went public with the truth. About his father, about the embezzlement, about everything. The press is destroying the Cole family name. The company's stock has crashed. The board is calling for his resignation. Grace's chest tightened. Why would he do that? He said it was time to pay the real debt. The one his father owed. Marcus handed her an envelope. He wanted you to have this. Side was a check. For $2 million and a letter in Brandon's handwriting. Grace. This is your father's half of the stolen money. plus 15 years of interest. It always did. I can't undo the damage my family caused yours. But I can give you this: freedom, security, a future for Lily. Take it. Build something beautiful. Forget about me, I'm sorry. For everything, Grace stared at the check through tears. She thought about keeping it, about the life it could buy, the stability it represented. Instead, she picked up her phone and made a call. Brandon. We need to talk. Brandon met her at a coffee shop far from the glass towers. He looked thinner, exhausted, like he hadn't slept in weeks. There was a fresh cut on his jaw from shaving, evidence of a man barely holding himself together. Grace slid the check across the table. I can't accept this. It's yours by right. Nothing about our situation has been about rights. It's been about revenge and guilt and two people too damaged to see clearly. Grace leaned forward. I looked into what you did, telling the truth about your father. You destroyed your own reputation to clear mine. It wasn't your reputation. And he deserved better than the story my father told. You're losing everything. The company, your position, your legacy. Brandon laughed bitterly. I never wanted that legacy. I just didn't know how to let it go. You showed me. By running away? By leaving you alone? By being honest. At that funeral, you said the truth everyone else was too polite to acknowledge. That both our fathers were cowards. That we were paying for their sins. Brandon's eyes met hers. You freed me, Grace. Even if you hate me for what I did, you freed me. I don't hate you. The admission cost her. I wish I did. It would be simpler. What do you feel? Grace looked at this man who'd tried to destroy her, who'd shown her cruelty and kindness in equal measure, who'd risked everything to give her the truth. I feel like we're standing in the ruins of something that was broken before we ever met. And I don't know if that means we're doomed, or if it means we understand each other in a way no one else could. Brandon reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers. Grace didn't pull away. But I've learned something from all of this. That holding on to anger just makes you its prisoner. My father made terrible choices. So did yours. We can keep bleeding for them, or we can choose something different. What would different look like? Honestly, I don't know. But maybe we could figure it out together. The board is forcing me to step down. The company will be sold. Everything my father built, everything I rebuilt, it's over. Is that what you want? What I want is to start over. Build something real this time. Something not based on lies or revenge. He squeezed her hand. If you'll let me. Grace felt the weight of the decision. This man had been her tormentor, her employer, her almost lover. He represented pain and possibility in equal measure. There's something I need to tell you first, she said. Brandon went still. What about her? Her father left when I was pregnant. I was 21, working 2 jobs, and he decided fatherhood was too much responsibility. I haven't heard from him in 7 years. Grace's voice steadied. I swore I'd never let anyone into her life who wasn't absolutely committed, who couldn't love her the way she deserves. I understand. I wouldn't ask, I'm telling you, because if we do this, if we try to build something from all this wreckage, it can't just be about us. Lily is my world. She comes first. Always. Brandon nodded slowly. She should. A child should always come first. Can you handle that? Being with someone who has a daughter, who has responsibilities and complications, and a life that doesn't revolve around you? Grace, you've survived 3 jobs, poverty, my cruelty, and the sins of your father. You've raised a child alone while I was throwing tantrums about the past. If anyone in this equation is complicated and difficult, it's me. Brandon's smile was sad. I don't know how to be a father figure. Don't know if I'd be any good at it. But I'd like to try. Before Grace could respond, her phone rang. Her neighbor's number. Her heart seized. "Hello? Grace, it's Lily." She was playing and fell. Hit her head. "I've called an ambulance." Grace was on her feet before the call ended. "I have to go. Hospital, Lily." Brandon grabbed his keys. "I'm driving. You're too shaken." They didn't speak during the frantic drive. Grace's hands twisted in her lap, prayers and bargains running through her mind. Please let her be okay. Please, at the hospital. They found Lily in an examination room, a white bandage wrapped around her forehead. She was crying, scared, reaching for Grace the moment she walked in. "Mommy." Grace gathered her daughter close, tears streaming down her face. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." The doctor appeared. "Mild concussion. We'd like to keep her overnight for observation, but she'll be fine." Grace's knees nearly gave out with relief. She looked up to thank Brandon for driving, but he was gone. She found him in the hallway, sitting on a bench, his head in his hands. "Brandon?" He looked up, and his eyes were wet. "When you got that call, when I saw your face, I understood what it means to love someone that completely, to have them be your entire world." His voice broke. "My father never looked at me like you look at Lily, never put me first, and I spent my whole life trying to earn something he wasn't capable of giving." Grace sat beside him. "He was broken. That wasn't your fault. I know. Intellectually, I've always known. But watching you with her, seeing what real love looks like, it finally hit me. I can't change my father. Can't fix what he did or didn't do. But I can choose to be different. To be better, you already are." Brandon shook his head. "I hired you to destroy you. I wanted you to suffer. But you just kept surviving, kept being stronger than me, braver than me. You made me face the truth about my father, about myself. And now, seeing you with Lily, I understand what matters. What matters. Not empires or revenge or legacy. Just this, being there for the people who need you. Showing up. Choosing love even when it's terrifying." Grace took his hand. "It is terrifying." "Yeah." Brandon managed a small smile. "But maybe we're brave enough to try anyway." Lily was released the next morning. Brandon drove them home, then surprised Grace by staying. He sat on the floor with Lily, playing board games with the patience of a saint, while Grace made dinner. "You're not very good at this game," Lily informed him seriously. "I'm learning." "You're an excellent teacher. Mommy says learning is important. Your mother is very smart." "Are you Mommy's boyfriend?" Brandon glanced at Grace, who'd frozen in the kitchen doorway. "I'd like to be," he said carefully. "If that's okay with you, and with your mom, do you make Mommy sad?" The question was a knife. Brandon met Lily's eyes. "I have, and I'm very sorry for that. I'm trying to do better. Good Mommy deserves to be happy. She works really hard. She does. She's the strongest person I know." Lily nodded, satisfied. "Okay, you can be her boyfriend. But if you make her cry again, I'll be mad." Brandon's throat tightened. "That's fair. I'd be mad too." Later, after Lily went to bed, Grace and Brandon stood on her small balcony. The city stretched below them, lights glittering like fallen stars. "She's amazing," Brandon said. "Like her mother, she's my whole heart." "I know. And Grace, I need you to understand something. If we do this, I'm all in. Not just with you, but with Lily." As a family, Grace turned to face him. "That's a big commitment for someone who didn't want complications." "I didn't want complications because I was afraid. Afraid of caring about something and losing it like I lost my father." Brandon cupped her face gently. "I'm done living in prisons of my own making. Done letting dead men dictate my choices. What do you want instead?" "You, Lily. A life that's messy and real, and nothing like what I planned. A life that scares me because it matters." Grace kissed him then, soft and sure. "A beginning, not an ending, but beginnings come with prices." The next morning, Brandon received a call from his lawyer. "They're claiming your revelations about your father constituted fraud and damaged the company. They want everything, Brandon. Your shares, your settlement, even your personal assets. Brandon closed his eyes. He'd known this might come. Truth had consequences. How bad? If they win, you'll have nothing. The penthouse, the cars, the investments, all of it gone. Grace watched from across the room, reading his expression. After he hung up, she asked what happened. Brandon told her. Watched her process it. They're taking everything? Potentially. If the lawsuit succeeds, then fight it. Hire better lawyers. You have the truth on your side. Fighting would take years, cost hundreds of thousands, and I'd still probably lose. What? Brandon sat heavily on her worn couch. The company wants blood for the scandal. They'll get it one way or another. So what will you do? Brandon looked around her small apartment. I'll let them have it. All of it, Brandon. No? That's your entire life. It was my father's life. I just inherited it. He pulled her close. I don't need penthouses or private jets. I need this, you Lily. A chance to build something that actually matters. Can't live on noble intentions. I have medical bills now. Rent, Lily's school, I know. And I'll figure it out. I'll get a job. Learn to live differently. You've been doing it your whole life. Maybe it's time I learned how the real world works. Grace searched his face for regret, for resentment. Found only determination. You'll lose everything. No. Brandon kissed her forehead. I'll lose money and status. But I'll keep what matters. That's not losing. That's winning. Grace thought about the journey that brought them here. Revenge and cruelty transformed into something neither of them expected. Two broken people finding wholeness in each other. Okay, she said finally. We'll figure it out together. Together. Brandon echoed, but neither of them saw the storm coming. Neither of them realized that. Victoria Sterling wasn't finished with them yet. Victoria appeared at Grace's door 3 weeks later. Her smile, sharp as broken glass. We need to talk. About Brandon. Grace blocked the doorway. I have nothing to say to you, but I have something to show you. Victoria held up her phone. About everything. Against her better judgment, Grace let her in. Victoria sat delicately on Grace's worn couch, looking around the small apartment with obvious disdain. Playing house in poverty. How romantic. But you should know who you're really playing with. Say what you came to say, then leave. Victoria pulled up an email chain on her phone. These are from Brandon's private account. From 6 months ago, before he hired you. He didn't just know about your father's innocence. He planned everything. Hiring you, tormenting you, making you fall for him. It was all calculated. Grace's blood went cold. You're lying. Am I? Look at the dates. Look at what he wrote to Marcus. Victoria read aloud. I found Robert Thompson's daughter. She's working as a cleaner. Perfect. I'll hire her, make her suffer, and when she's completely broken, I'll reveal the truth about our fathers. The ultimate revenge will be watching her realize she wasted years hating herself for nothing. The words hit like physical blows. Grace grabbed the phone, scrolled through the messages. They were real, detailed, cruel. He never cared about you, Victoria continued. He just wanted to destroy you more completely than simple cruelty ever could. He wanted you to love him, then take it all away. Leave you with nothing. Grace's hand shook. She thought about every moment with Brandon. Every kiss, every confession, every vulnerable word. Had it all been performance? Why are you showing me this? Because Brandon Cole destroyed my reputation when he ended our engagement. Because he's trying to play the noble hero, sacrificing his fortune for love, when really he's just executing the final phase of his revenge. Victoria's eyes glittered. I want you to know the truth before he finishes what he started. After Victoria left, Grace sat in the silence, staring at the messages. Her mind replayed every interaction with Brandon through this new, horrible lens. Was any of it real? Brandon arrived an hour later, excited. I got a job. It's not much, just entry level at a tech startup, but it's honest work. We can make this work, Grace. We can, he stopped, seeing her face. What happened? Grace held up her phone, showing him Victoria's evidence. Tell me these are fake. Tell me she manipulated them somehow. Brandon went pale. Grace, let me explain, so they're real. You planned everything. Hiring me, hurting me, making me trust you. It was all revenge. But Grace, people change. Situations change. I changed when... When did you change? Before or after you kissed me? Before or after you met my daughter? Before or after you made me believe we could have something real? Grace's voice rose. Because these messages say you've planned to destroy me, completely, and I need to know if that's still the plan. Brandon stepped toward her. She stepped back. Don't. Just answer the question. Were you planning to leave me after I fell in love with you? Was that the endgame? Brandon's silence was answer enough. Grace felt something inside her break. Not her heart, which had cracked so many times it barely noticed one more wound, but her faith in her own judgment, her belief that she could recognize truth when she saw it. Get out. Grace, please. That was months ago. Before I knew you, before I understood what you'd survived. I'm not that person anymore. You're exactly that person. You just learned to hide it better. Like your father, like mine, like everyone who's ever lied to me. Leave, now, and don't come back. What about us? What about everything we talked about building? There is no us. There never was. Just another Coleman using another Thompson for revenge. Grace's voice was steady, cold. You win, Brandon. Congratulations. You destroyed me more completely than I knew was possible. Now leave. Brandon stood at the threshold, his face stricken. I love you. Whatever my plans were before, I love you now. And I love Lily, that's real. Love built on lies isn't love. It's just another manipulation. He left. Grace closed the door and slid down against it, finally letting herself break. 3 days of silence, then Marcus showed up with Brandon's laptop. Asked me to give you this. Said you deserve to see everything. All his files, all his communications, unedited. He said, if you're going to hate him, it should be for the full truth. Grace took the laptop reluctantly. Why are you helping him? Because I've known Brandon since we were 20, and I've never seen him like this. Destroyed. Completely shattered. Marcus met her eyes. But I'm not here for him. I'm here for you. Because you deserve the full story before you decide. After he left, Grace opened the laptop. Found the folder marked Thompson. Inside were hundreds of files. The investigation into her father. The discovery of his father's crimes. Emails, plans, strategies for revenge. But also, it's dated 3 months after Grace started working for him. A document titled, I Was Wrong. Grace opened it. I hired Grace Thompson to destroy her, to make her pay for sins she didn't commit. I wanted her to suffer the way I suffered when my father died. But somewhere along the way, she stopped being Robert Thompson's daughter and became herself. Grace, a woman who survives impossible circumstances with dignity, who works 3 jobs to give her daughter a better life, who stands up to me when I'm being cruel, not with anger, but with truth. She's made me question everything I believed about revenge, about justice, about who deserves happiness. And I don't know what to do with that. I keep telling myself I'll go through with the plan, but the thought of hurting her makes me physically sick now. The thought of not seeing her every day is worse. I think I'm in love with her, and I have no idea how to fix what I've done. The document was dated 2 weeks before he kissed her. Before his mother died. Before everything changed, Grace scrolled through more files. Found a folder titled Plans. Inside was a document dated just last week. Things I need to do, :1. Finish the lawsuit settlement. Sign over everything to protect Grace from any legal blocked. 2. Find stable employment. Nothing prestigious. Just honest work. .3. Tell Grace everything. No more secrets. No more lies. 4. Prove I'm worthy of her. And Lily. However long it takes, 5. If she still hates me after knowing the complete truth, accept it and walk away. Note to self, she deserves better than me. But I'm selfish enough to hope she'll give me a chance to become better for her. Grace read through files until dawn. Saw the evolution of a man's soul in documents and emails. Saw Brandon Cole transform from a revenge-obsessed tyrant to someone capable of love. The question was, did it matter? Could change erase the original sign? Could someone who planned to destroy her really love her? Grace thought about her own father. How he must have justified his crimes. How he must have told himself lies became truth if you believed them long enough. But she also thought about redemption, about second chances, about the fact that people were more than their worst. Moments she picked up her phone. Brandon met her at the same coffee shop. He looked worse than before. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. Defeat written across his posture. I read everything, Grace said without preamble. Then you know I'm exactly as terrible as you thought. I know you planned to destroy me. I know you hired me for revenge. I know that for months you saw me as nothing more than a vessel for your pain. Brandon nodded, not defending himself. I saw when it happened, read the moment you started questioning yourself. Started seeing me as human instead of symbol. Does it matter? The intent was still there. Yes, it matters. Grace leaned forward. Because I had a choice when I read those files. I could focus on who you were 6 months ago. Or I could focus on who you've become. And Brandon, I've spent my whole life being judged for things I didn't do. For being my father's daughter? For being poor? For being a single mother? For surviving instead of breaking. You deserved better than my judgment. I did. But here's what I learned from all this. People are more complicated than their worst choices. My father made terrible decisions, but he was also a man who loved my mother and me before he destroyed us. Your father built a company and ruined lives. You planned revenge and fell in love instead. Brandon looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm tired of letting the past dictate the future. I'm tired of carrying sins that aren't mine. And I think you are too. More than you know. Grace reached across the table. So here's what I propose. We start over. Not as Brandon Cole and Grace Thompson, children of criminals, but as Brandon and Grace, two people who found each other in the wreckage and decided to build something new. If you're willing to forgive me, after everything, I'm willing to try. But Brandon, no more secrets, no more lies. If we do this, it has to be completely honest. Even when honesty hurts. Agreed. No more secrets. Brandon took her hand. Grace, there's one more thing you should know. The lawsuit settlement. I didn't just give up my fortune to the company. I gave half of it to a fund for victims of corporate fraud. In your father's name and mine. So both our father's crimes could be turned into something good. Tears filled Grace's eyes. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. For you, for my father's other victims. For the people we both could have become if our fathers had made better choices. Brandon's voice was steady. I can't change the past, but I can stop letting it control the future. Grace stood, pulling him up with her. Come home with me. Lily's been asking about you, she has. She likes you. Says you're funny when you lose at board games. Brandon laughed, the sound rusty but real. I am objectively terrible at board games. They walked to Grace's apartment together, hands linked. The city moved around them, indifferent to their small redemption. Inside, Lily looked up from her coloring book. You came back? She ran to Brandon, hugging his legs. Brandon knelt to her level. We did. We had some things to work through, but we figured it out. Good grown-ups fight sometimes. That's okay as long as you fix it. Lily's wisdom was profound in its simplicity. Want to color with me? Brandon looked at Grace, who nodded, smiling. I'd love to. Grace watched them settle on the floor. Lily explaining her picture with serious concentration while Brandon listened like she was revealing the secrets of the universe. This was her life now. Not perfect. Not simple. But real in a way nothing had been before. Months later, at a small courthouse ceremony, Grace and Brandon made it official. No grand wedding, no expensive reception. Just them, Lily, Marcus, and a judge who smiled at the unconventional family. "I promise to be honest, even when it's hard," Brandon said, sliding a simple ring onto Grace's finger. "To put you and Lily first, to never let revenge or pride or fear make my decisions. To build a life worthy of your trust." "I promise to believe in your growth," Grace replied. "To forgive without forgetting. To build our future together without letting our father's choices define us." They kissed while Lily cheered. Later, in the apartment they now shared, Brandon tucked Lily into bed while Grace watched from the doorway. "Brandon," Lily's sleepy voice drifted out, "are you my dad now?" Brandon's throat tightened. He looked at Grace, who nodded permission. "If you want me to be." "I do. Dads protect people. You protect Mommy. So yeah, you're my dad." "Then I'm honored to be your dad, Lily." After she fell asleep, Brandon and Grace stood on the balcony, watching the city lights. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned into his warmth. "Do you ever regret it?" Brandon asked quietly. "Giving me a second chance?" Grace turned in his arms. "Every relationship is a risk. But Brandon, I spent years being afraid. Afraid of trusting the wrong person. Afraid of failing Lily. Afraid of ending up like my mother. Worked to death and alone. And now I'm still afraid sometimes. But I'm also brave. Because you taught me something important." "What's that?" Grace smiled. "That we're not doomed to repeat our father's mistakes. That people can change." Brandon kissed her forehead. "I don't deserve you. Maybe not. But you're trying to. And that's what matters." They stood together in the peaceful dark, two survivors who'd found each other in the ruins. Their father's legacies of theft and lies had brought them together. But their own choices had transformed that poison into something beautiful. Grace thought about the girl she'd been 6 months ago. Exhausted, invisible, barely surviving. And she thought about who she was now. A wife, a mother, a woman who'd faced her worst enemy and found love instead of destruction. The past couldn't be changed. But the future was still being written, and this time they were writing it together. Years later, Lily would ask about how her parents met. Brandon would look at Grace, and they'd share a smile full of secrets. "It's complicated," Grace would say. "But worth it," Brandon would add. And Lily, wise beyond her years like her mother, would understand that the best love stories aren't the simple ones. They're the ones where people fight through darkness to find light, where mistakes become lessons, where revenge transforms into redemption, where two broken people become whole. The end.